นี่คือภาพเรือสินค้าไทยที่ถูกโจมตีที่ช่องแคบฮอร์มุซนะคะ
The entire global economy
พลังงานและทางเดินเรือของโลกกำลังถูกใช้เป็นเครื่องมือต่อรองทางอำนาจขณะที่มหาอำนาจกำลังปรับเกมใหม่ในโลกที่แตกเป็นหลายขั้วสหราชอาณาจักรจะเลือกเดินทางไหนและไทยจะเดินเกมอย่างไร
There have been reports of mining in the Strait of Hormuz or attacks on vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, not least a Thai-flagged vessel. And this is completely unacceptable.
ความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างไทยกับสหราชอาณาจักรที่เดินหน้ามากว่า170ปีจะดำเนินต่อไปในทิศทางไหนหรือเอเชียจะเป็นจุดยุทธศาสตร์ทางเศรษฐกิจใหม่ที่สหราชอาณาจักรกำลังหมายตา How does the UK view this trip to China? Is it part of economic necessity or strategic stance of the UK? คุณผู้ชมคะย้อนกลับไปเมื่อประมาณ170ปีที่แล้วความสัมพันธ์ทางการทูตระหว่างไทยและสหราชอาณาจักรเริ่มต้นจากสนธิสัญญาบาวริงนะคะมาถึงทุกวันนี้ท่ามกลางสถานการณ์โลกที่เปลี่ยนไปอย่างมากทั้งในเชิงภูมิรัฐศาสตร์และภูมิเศรษฐศาสตร์แต่เรื่องการค้าการลงทุนก็ต้องปรับตัวและเดินหน้าต่อไปเช่นเดียวกันค่ะมีหลายๆภาคส่วนที่ยังร่วมมือกันได้อย่างแข็งแกร่งในอนาคตไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องนวัตกรรมเทคโนโลยีการศึกษาเรื่องของการวิจัยและพัฒนานะคะแต่สำหรับประเทศไทยเองก็มีอีกหลากหลายมิติที่ต้องปรับปรุงเพื่อที่จะกระชับความสัมพันธ์ในเชิงเศรษฐกิจกับสหราชอาณาจักรด้วยค่ะ
But I think what's really impressed me is both the welcome, the very warm welcome I've had, but also the opportunities that have emerged over the years for more partnership in new areas like genomics, digital technology, science, where the UK and Thailand have so much to gain by working together.
Last year marked relation between Thailand and the UK for 170 years. But at this very juncture, the world situation is quite uncertain. What does that mean that partnership have implication for both Thailand and the UK of global geopolitical landscape?
The global geopolitical landscape is changing quickly. The world is more contested now, it's more fragmented. People talk about a multipolar world with different forces applying. And I think in amongst all the turbulence that's happening around the world at the moment, in the UK, British people look to the British government and they want us to be supporting economic growth and they want us to be keeping people safe. So in doing that, on economic growth, we need to promote trade and investment. We need to work with partners around the world to liberalise trade, to support business. And on security, we need to work with international partners because many of the security threats we face are international. And in that respect, the UK and Thailand are obvious partners. And obviously, we've got a strong relationship now for 170 years. But on trade, there's all sorts we can do to promote the trade relationship and investment relationship between the two countries.
So many dynamics of cooperation. Yeah. But looking back, the Bowring Treaty was the first entry of Siam into the global economy.
That's right.
But at this very juncture, how do you think how should Thailand engage with the world economy?
I think there's lots that Thailand can do, and it's rather similar to what the UK should do as well, actually. But trade and investment are the starting point. So actually removing barriers to trade and promoting free markets and open trade, I think, is very important. So, for instance, for international investors coming to Thailand, many of them have a very positive experience, but there are ways that you can make that easier by making regulation as smooth as possible, by reducing customs bureaucracy, that kind of thing. So that's half of it. But the other half these days, which is implicit in your question, is actually economic security. So where are your supply chains? What are the risks to your supply chains? And how can you mitigate those risks? And that's, again, where we need to work internationally to make sure we diversify our trade and investment partnerships, but also identify where the risks are, where the pressure points are, so that we can actually mitigate them as much as possible.
ก่อนที่เราจะพูดถึงห่วงโซ่อุปทานและวิกฤตพลังงานที่เกิดขึ้นทั่วโลกจากสงครามในตะวันออกกลางโลกกำลังเผชิญทั้งสงครามวิกฤตเศรษฐกิจและการแข่งขันระหว่างมหาอำนาจไปพร้อมๆกันคำถามก็คือ นี่คือความปั่นป่วนเพียงชั่วคราวหรือคือโลกแบบใหม่ที่เราต้องหาทางอยู่กับมันต่อไปให้ได้
I think there are crises going on at the moment that have very long roots and they will last a long time in the future. But I do think we need to be clear about the values and interests that we have as the UK and Thailand in these issues. In this contested world, we need to be clear about our support for sovereignty, for territorial integrity, and for international law. And the vehicle that we need to use is a multilateral system. So we need a multilateral system that works. And I think it's been debated for many years now about the multilateral system today, the UN. Does it really reflect the demographics of the world today when it was created 80 years ago? And the answer is probably not. So it does need reform. We need to make these institutions more efficient. We need to make them more representative. And the UK is a strong champion of that. And of course, Thailand is a hub for the UN in this region as well. So I think the UK and Thailand can work together on multilateral reform to make it more efficient. But as I say, a lot of these challenges are long-standing, and I think we need to start with our principles in terms of how we address them.
Yes, the whole world is facing the same challenges regarding the situation in the Middle East from energy, from economic insecurity. And what's the sentiment of the UK and what's your stance on this?
Well, as you know, the UK is not taking part in offensive action in this war, but we are contributing to the defensive effort. So we're allowing UK bases in the region to be used for defensive efforts because Iran has retaliated by attacking all of its neighbours, by launching missiles, and this is completely unacceptable. So we are helping our allies protect themselves and we are protecting British interests in the region. I do think the path to a long-term settlement of this issue, though, is only possible through dialogue and diplomacy. And what we're seeing now, obviously, is the almost a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is essentially trying to use economic tools as a weapon in the war, which has caused this enormous energy shock that we're seeing play out already. But our position is clear that we need some kind of dialogue, diplomacy to address these issues and find a sustainable settlement. In this instance, Iran's retaliation after the fighting started was to attack its neighbours. So launching missiles, there have been reports of mining in the Strait of Hormuz or attacks on vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, not least a Thai-flagged vessel. And this is completely unacceptable. So we are absolutely supportive of the need for the region to defend itself from these completely unwarranted attacks. And that's why we're allowing UK bases to be used for defensive purposes.
ท่ามกลางความผันผวนจากเปลวไฟสงครามในตะวันออกกลางที่ส่งผลกระทบต่อห่วงโซ่อุปทานโลกสหราชอาณาจักรไม่ได้นิ่งนอนใจค่ะรัฐบาลสหราชอาณาจักรกำลังเร่งขับเคลื่อนวาระการเติบโตอย่างเต็มตัวโดยยกให้เป็นภารกิจหลักเพื่อรับมือกับการเติบโตที่ยังคงอยู่ในระดับปานกลางความไม่แน่นอนในภูมิภาคเดิมกลายเป็นแรงผลักดันให้สหราชอาณาจักรต้องมองหาจุดยุทธศาสตร์ใหม่การกระจายความเสี่ยงไม่ใช่แค่ทางเลือกแต่อาจเป็นทางรอดเพื่อลดการพึ่งพามหาอำนาจหลักและมุ่งหน้าสู่ภูมิภาคที่มีเสถียรภาพและศักยภาพสูงอย่างเอเชียและอาเซียน
Where we talk about diversification, I would think about trade partners across the world. So you don't want to be over-reliant on any one trade or investment partner. So the UK's biggest trading partners are the US, China, and the EU. So it's very important that we get those relationships right and promote trade and investment with those countries. But actually, we need to look beyond that, which is why we're working very closely with the Ministry of Commerce here in Thailand, with other ASEAN partners to really drive growth wherever we can.
The beginning of this year, your Prime Minister visited China, and the whole world see how China has been highlighted. How do you view, or how does the UK view this trip to China? Is it part of economic necessity or strategic stance of the UK?
Yes, both. I think we see it as a very pragmatic move by the UK. China is an enormously important global player, and we need to engage. So we need to cooperate where we can, but also challenge where we must. And I think that was very much the spirit in which Prime Minister Starmer visited earlier this year. It was the first visit by a UK to China for some years, I think 8 years, and our response was very positive. They had very constructive conversations about where we can build the trade and investment opportunity. There's a huge agenda in terms of action against climate change.
But overall, does that show that Britain foreign policy is now being more independent and diverges from the US?
From the US? I thought you were going to say from the EU after we left the EU, but the UK's always had an independent foreign policy, and even within the EU, foreign policy is agreed by consensus, which means that every country has a veto. So yeah, we've always had a very distinctive foreign policy. Obviously, we work very closely with the US and EU where we have shared interests.
ในเกมภูมิรัฐศาสตร์โลกสหราชอาณาจักรเลือกยืนหยัดบนผลประโยชน์แห่งชาติแทนการเลือกข้างโดยใช้จุดแข็งจากการเป็นสมาชิก UNSC G7 และ G20 ขับเคลื่อนระบบพหุภาคีและการค้าเสรีไปทั่วโลกสำหรับอาเซียนสหราชอาณาจักรยกระดับความสัมพันธ์ในวาระครบรอบ 5 ปีของการเป็นคู่เจรจาผ่านโมเดลหุ้นส่วนทางยุทธศาสตร์หรือ Strategic Partnerทั้งกับไทยสิงคโปร์เวียดนามและฟิลิปปินส์เพื่อสร้างความร่วมมือที่ลึกซึ้งกว่าแค่การเจรจารูปแบบทั่วไปผ่าน3เสาหลักเศรษฐกิจความมั่นคงและสังคมโดยเฉพาะการผลักดันประเด็น Climate Change และการรวมกลุ่มทางเศรษฐกิจซึ่งประเทศไทยนับว่าเป็นหุ้นส่วนยุทธศาสตร์ที่สำคัญในด้านห่วงโซ่อุปทานผ่านความร่วมมือในอุตสาหกรรมแห่งอนาคตทั้งดิจิทัล AI Life Science และ Green Transitionอันเป็นหัวใจสำคัญของการปฏิรูปเศรษฐกิจที่สหราชอาณาจักรมุ่งหน้าผลักดันและมีความเชี่ยวชาญ And relations between UK and Thailand was elevated last year with strategic partnership,
yes.
which begin in 2024. And the UK is the first of European country to have Thailand as strategic partnership.
Yes.
Why Thailand? Why now?
Well, I think that was a moment to look at our forward ambition for the future and raise it. So it was obvious to us in the UK, and I think to the Thai government as well, that the partnership was growing very strongly, and that partnership is based on trade and investment, so economic growth, as I've said. The security partnership, so how we work together internationally on security challenges, but also the people-to-people relationship, on tourism, on education, and there were huge opportunities for us to strengthen this. So we took the idea forward, and in all of those sectors we worked across both governments to agree new ambitions. So I think it was a very good time to do that. It sets a vision for the medium term, and we're now well on the way to implementing it.
ท่ามกลางสถานการณ์โลกที่ผันผวนและเต็มไปด้วยการแข่งขันทางการค้าการลงทุนอย่างดุเดือดไทยและสหราชอาณาจักรในฐานะหุ้นส่วนยุทธศาสตร์ที่สำคัญจะมีโอกาสสร้างความร่วมมือทางเศรษฐกิจร่วมกันอย่างไร
I think there are a number of sectors and a number of cross-cutting issues. So on sectors, digitalisation I think is absolutely key. So we send usually a delegation of about 40 people from Thailand to London Tech Week every year. Some of them are venture capital companies wanting to invest in tech startups in the UK, but also others are wanting to use UK tech and digital know-how to bring back to Thailand to digitalise processes and things. So digital is one. I would say decarbonisation is huge as well. So both in terms of big Thai investors going to invest in renewables in the UK or carbon capture and storage, run a commercially viable operation, but also gain knowledge of technology, operating systems, and bring that back to Thailand. We have a very good defence relationship as well, where there are huge opportunities, and beyond that, life sciences, genomics. So those are some of the sectors where I think the big opportunities are, and there's an alignment there between demand and commercial strength.
What are the sector which is the most promising for Thailand to improve and elevate cooperation?
So on something like decarbonisation, actually the government under Prime Minister Anutin just a few months ago accelerated Thailand's target for net zero greenhouse gases. So he pulled it forward from 2065 to 2050. So that is both very welcome in itself because we're trying to save the planet and mitigate climate change, but also it provides a clear signal to business that this is the direction of travel. We're going to have to go down net zero pathways and invest in green energy, green transport, green agriculture. So business have a real sign there. So there's an enormous economic opportunity there. So by working with the UK and other international partners, Thailand can develop technologies, develop regulatory systems to incentivize investment in low carbon. So for instance, the biggest program the British Embassy has in Thailand is actually on climate change. It's called Partnering for an Accelerated Climate Transition, where we are working on green finance, things like carbon markets. So the UK has a lot of experience of developing carbon markets, developing methods to price carbon, green bonds, sustainable bonds. These are all tools that Thailand can use to generate finance for investment into low carbon. And the expertise is out there. We're happy to share it. So that's one example. I would say on life sciences and genomics, actually Thailand is a regional leader in terms of health. Many of the senior healthcare professionals in Thailand were educated in the UK, which gives us a huge advantage. So some of the most groundbreaking research in this region on health issues, life sciences, is done in Thailand. And I met the Minister for Public Health just a few weeks ago, and he told me that Thailand has now sequenced over 50,000 genomes. So the opportunity for research with those genomes, with that database, is huge. So what we need is for the best scientists from Thailand to be able to work with the best scientists from the UK and elsewhere to analyse those genome sequences. And they will do research which will transform diagnostics, transform treatments for really sort of individualised treatments. So this is an area, it's going to really transform the provision of healthcare around the world. And Thailand has an opportunity to be at the forefront of that because Thailand has the healthcare expertise, the research expertise, and the international partnerships. So that's an opportunity we need to take.
แม้ไทยจะมีคนเก่งมากมายแต่ทำไมอุตสาหกรรมต่างๆของไทยยังไปได้ไม่สุดสักทางหรือคำตอบจะอยู่ที่การยกระดับการศึกษาและการปฏิรูปกฎระเบียบที่จริงจังสู่การดึงดูดการลงทุนและสร้างบุคลากรที่มีศักยภาพในการพัฒนาตนเองและประเทศ
As our economies evolve and move into higher value-added sectors. So one is investing in education, one is investing in infrastructure, one is liberalising the economy or the investment environment to streamline some of this regulation to make it as conducive as possible.
What do you see as the bottleneck in Thailand to bring more investment or bring more cooperation from other countries like the UK?
Well, investment is very much along the lines that I'm talking about. So if I've talked about education and some of the approvals required or limitations on people wanting to invest. I think in other sectors, if you're a pharmaceutical company, that you'll be very interested in the length of time it takes to grant approvals to pharmaceuticals. So if you want to manufacture in Thailand and invest, you need a smooth process, an easy process. Sometimes it's not straightforward for pharmaceutical companies. 2 years ago, we signed an enhanced trade partnership which set out 20 different sectors. Some economic sectors, some generic like competition or services. And in each of these sectors, we are looking at the priorities from business. So where business has told us our lives would be made a lot easier if you could just improve these 3 or 5 different regulations. So we're working with the Ministry of Commerce very successfully actually to take that forward. So this can be done. We just need a dialogue and we need to keep up the pace.
Can you name some of those regulations that you got requests from British investor in Thailand that Thailand should really regulate or really relax the regulation?
There has actually been progress in exactly what I've just mentioned. So pharmaceutical approval, the processes have been accelerated. That is still being implemented, but that is something that we've been encouraging and that is now being taken forward. Some of these rules about educational institutions operating in Thailand are also in the process of being relaxed. And we also need to work on digital governance because AI and other digital sectors are developing very, very quickly. And so we are actively working with our sort of leading thinkers in terms of AI governance about how we can work across ASEAN and with Thailand to make sure that we manage the risks whilst allowing and enabling the innovation to take place.
And to do all that, like improving environment in Thailand, will it help Thailand in order to have accession to complete accession program with the OECD? And how does your take on Thailand will help, like UK stance on Thailand will help Thailand in terms of that accession process?
Yes, so it was one distinct element of the OECD accession process is linked to AI, and the OECD has an AI toolkit which its members can use to exchange best practice in terms of how to regulate this type of thing. The OECD accession process, of course, is much broader than that. So there are all sorts of criteria, and as you probably know, the UK strongly supported Thailand's application to join the OECD. It will take some time, and there's lots of difficult reforms that will need to be taken forward. But I think as a statement of intent by the government, it's very positive. And also the UK is able to work with the relevant ministries on those reforms to exchange best practice on legislation, on regulation, whatever. And actually a lot of the work we already do is linked to OECD priorities anyway. So I think we're quite well placed to work with Thailand on this process.
ในโลกที่การค้าไม่ใช่แค่เรื่องของกำไรขาดทุนแต่กลายเป็นอาวุธทางยุทธศาสตร์ประเทศไทยกำลังยืนอยู่บนทางแพร่งสำคัญท่ามกลางการแข่งขันที่ดุเดือดในอาเซียนที่ทุกประเทศต่างงัดเอาสิทธิประโยชน์ทางภาษีและค่าแรงมาห้ามหันกันคำถามที่น่าสนใจก็คือไทยจะดึงความโดดเด่นออกมาได้อย่างไรในวันที่สนามแข่งไม่เหมือนเดิมอีกต่อไป
Obviously, Thailand's geography is very central. So if you're looking for a regional hub, Thailand is an obvious choice. But also, Thailand grew very quickly in the 1990s and the years after that. So we already have one of our biggest trade relationships within ASEAN countries with Thailand. So we have over $10 billion worth of trade between the UK and Thailand already. With I think it's over 5,000 British businesses exporting to Thailand. We've got big investments going both ways. So we have the established trade relationship. And that's with the status quo. So if you can imagine if there was improvements in the regulation, real promotion of trade and investment beyond what we've got before, the opportunity there is huge because our businesses know each other. They're established already. So I think the opportunity for growth is very large. We've always said that our enhanced trade partnership that we agreed a couple of years ago was a stepping stone on the way towards a potential FTA. The really big trade relationships for us are the US, EU and China. So we've had a lot of work to do on those relationships in recent years. We've also, since we left the EU, we've had responsibility for our own trade policy. So we've had to negotiate rollover arrangements and some new arrangements as well.
เอกอัครราชทูตมาร์ค กูดดิ้งย้ำหลายครั้งนะคะว่าเห็นโอกาสสำหรับประเทศไทยและสหราชอาณาจักรที่จะร่วมมือกันต่อไปอย่างแข็งแกร่งโดยเฉพาะก็ต้องหันไปทางด้านวิทยาศาสตร์เทคโนโลยีและนวัตกรรมรวมถึงสถาบันการศึกษาให้มากขึ้นนะคะและถือว่าเป็นความร่วมมือสำหรับโลกอนาคตแต่ก็ย้ำอีกหลายครั้งเช่นเดียวกันค่ะว่าไทยเองก็จะต้องปรับปรุงในเรื่องของกฎหมายเพื่อให้ดึงดูดสำหรับนักลงทุนต่างชาติและบริษัทต่างชาติเพื่อที่จะเข้ามาในไทยได้อย่างผ่อนคลายและรู้สึกว่าไทยมีเสถียรภาพสร้างบรรยากาศที่จะเอื้อต่อการลงทุนจากต่างชาติให้มากขึ้นค่ะแต่โดยรวมก็เห็นได้ชัดนะคะว่าท่ามกลางความเปลี่ยนแปลงในเชิงภูมิรัฐศาสตร์ความขัดแย้งสงครามที่กำลังเกิดขึ้นยังมีโอกาสความร่วมมือและต่างฝ่ายต่างต้องปรับตัวค่ะเพื่อที่จะเดินหน้าความสัมพันธ์กันต่อไปทั้งหมดก็คือ The World Dialogue สำหรับวันนี้ค่ะดิฉันณัฐฐา โกมลวาทินสวัสดีค่ะ If someone ถ้ามีคนถามว่าชอบอะไรเกี่ยวกับประเทศไทยจะพูดว่าอะไร
ผมจะพูดว่าผมชอบคนไทยโดยเฉพาะเพราะว่าเขาเป็นมิตรทำให้ผมรู้สึกที่เขาต้อนรับผมอย่างดีมากแต่ผมก็ชอบไปเที่ยวในประเทศไทยและเข้าใจวัฒนธรรมประวัติศาสตร์และชนบทก็สวยงามมากแน่นอนผมชอบไปชายหาดเช่นกันและเดินเล่นในภาคเหนือ
โอ้ไปทะเลแล้วก็ไปภาคเหนือ
ไปเชียงใหม่